Okay, part two of the garden tour. Right down this area we have a lot of native azaleas. The native azaleas are a rhododendron, or the pinkster bloom azalea and the rose shell azalea. They're just about past, they're pretty far past their blooming, though we have a few flowers left on this pinkster bloom here. That's kind of pretty. Um, the the rose shells have a nice fragrance that is very pleasant. It looks like back here we've got a couple of predators, large predators. They're very quiet this time of day. I think they mostly nocturnal, perhaps. They don't seem to move much. Right down here we've got Calmia latifolia, the mountain laurel. This is the species that you'll see in the woods, particularly in western Mass and Connecticut. You'll see a lot of these. The buds are just about as interesting as the flowers. There's a lot of cultivars of this, different ones that they've cultivated, including ones that get to be very pinkish and reddish. We have one of the cultivars over here. It's not bloomed yet, it's still just the buds, but the buds are beautiful, dark pink. This is another mountain laurel, Calmia latifolia. We created a garden room. This is what Mary wanted to have at the end of the path. I had to build a little retaining wall there, and my mom gave us the St. Francis, and it's pretty rustic, but it's nice for a little contemplative moment at the end of the path. We've got some marginal shield ferns here. This is Dryopteris marginalis. It's called marginal shield fern because you can see the spores are all lined up on the margins of the fronds, or the frondlets. So it's kind of a pretty thing that comes up every year. This stuff over here is this is lance-leaved goldenrod. This is what's called a volunteer. In gardening, native gardening terminology, they talk about volunteers, which are native plants that show up in your yard that you didn't plant here, but that you let them stay because they're consistent with the ecology, and they fit in with the community of plants that would have been here pre-European conquests. I've let the lance-leaf goldenrod stay. The pollinators love it. It's not a very showy flower. A lot of woodland flowers aren't showy because there isn't a lot of energy to be spent on. There isn't as much sunlight, so there isn't as much sort of capital to invest in flowers. And that's why a lot of the flowers are white, because in the woods it's easier to see white. You know, it can be fun to create an environment if you're not too concerned about having a lot of showy flowers. This is something called sweet fern. I love the name because it's neither sweet nor is it a fern, but it does have a very pungent aroma when you crush the leaves. Another volunteer we have over here is sassafras, and I love sassafras. You see it all the time in the woods in the area, and I'm so glad that it decided to start growing in our yard. Let's see, we'll take you up along the path a little bit here. Ideally, I'd like to have the path covered with wood chips, but that's how we originally had it, but at some point we might invest in some more wood chips. They're not cheap to get enough to cover the whole path. Here you see some of our friend poison ivy down there. Just got to be careful you're walking around out here. These are Solomon seal, which is Polygonum pubescens. I love how they have the flowers are all hidden underneath, and a lot of woodland flowers like to hide. let me go back down this way. I forgot to show you the false Solomon seal. So that was Solomon seal. Now we're going to see false Solomon seal. The leaves are very similar, but the flowers, instead of underneath, they're a spray at the end of the frond. So I don't know what happened to this leaf here. So you have you come up to the end, and there's the flowers. They're very beautiful looking flowers, and these have slowly spread over the years. We just took a walk this morning in Prospect Hill Park and saw lots of these false Solomon seals in the woods. So the idea is we want to be able to, you know, when you walk in the woods in eastern Massachusetts, you're going to see a lot of the same plants that you see in my yard, because we're trying to create this, trying to take back the land for the plants and the animals that were here to begin with before you know, European settlements started to interfere with things. Now it's only a tiny little property. I realize it's not going to change the world, but it makes me feel good that we're bringing back some of the landscape that was here before Columbus. Oh, I forgot to mention the other tree, tree in here. We've got the two, obviously the two oaks, the witch hazel here. This is a witch hazel tree, which is it's called a lower bottom story tree. It never gets very tall, but it's very common in the woods. And then the wild that's Hamadalius virginiana, and then the wild black cherry, which is Prunus serotina, that's considered a colonizing tree. That's very common when old agricultural fields are let to sort of grow on their own. This is one of the first things to colonize it. This is, you can see the cherries here. I'm trying to get them in focus. They just bloomed a little while ago, and the cherries are already you know, growing here. They don't get very big. They're not really edible by humans. They tend to be very bitter, but the birds absolutely love them, and they love them so much that they poop the pits out all over the yard, and that means I have to pull up all these tiny little cherry trees unless I want to have cherry trees everywhere. Same thing with our neighbors' Norway maples, which Norway maples are one of the native plant gardeners' nemesis. Nemesis, is that what you say? They have prolific amounts of seeds, and we're constantly pulling up the seeds from those. They are an invasive species that takes over all other sort of doesn't allow other plants to grow in the area. It doesn't allow for the diversity that has evolved over many thousands of years. A community that of plants and animals and bacteria and insects, and you know, that's supposed to be working together. Here's my certified wildlife thing. Although I have to admit that I don't have water source right now. Unfortunately, we had a solar-powered fountain bird bath that broke, and I'm nervous about just putting water out because of mosquitoes breeding in it. But anyway, here's our backyard here in Waltham Highlands. Hope you enjoyed the tour. Bye.